Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers, welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. It is Monday, October 2nd. Yeah, I had to look because all these days are starting to run together. My kids are still out of school from the storm. It's just been a cluster for over a week now, but we are good. We found out Grammy's house had more damage than we thought. So she's going to be with me probably for a couple more weeks. And I'm glad because there's nothing like having her here at my house. We laugh all the time. Thanks for all your well wishes, super chats, donations. Appreciate you guys so much. We will get back to normal at some point, but we are way better than our neighbors up in Western North Carolina, where still just devastation, rescues, and the unimaginable up there. Speaking of hurricanes, if you're in the Tampa area, listen to your warnings. This is going to be a devastating storm surge. Storm surge is the number one killer in hurricanes, not the wind. So if you've been ordered to evacuate, get out. I have a lot of listeners down there. Take care of yourself, please. I worry about you guys. Update me after the storm to let me know you're safe. It's taken so long to upload these episodes. I'm not doing a music fact right now because that just cuts into how much more I have to upload. Don't forget to hit subscribe, like this video, share it with your friends. It helps the channel grow. The biggest thing you can do is just like the video. One little click puts it out to people who may not know I exist. And the more the merrier, right? Okay, so let's jump in. Sarah Boone, the Hot Mess Express. Her trial was delayed due to Hurricane Milton. It's going to be starting up next Monday. And get this, she rejected a 15-year manslaughter plea deal today, decided to take it to trial. What does she face? A minimum of 22 years up to life. Ready for this to get started. Now, jury selection will not be live streamed, but as soon as opening statement starts, I'll be live streaming all day, every minute of testimony. And then at night, I'll be recapping the best of testimony in an hour or less if you can't watch or don't want to. Let's hop back into Diddy. He's hired new attorneys as he is trying for a third time to make bond. TMZ reported Diddy has added Anthony Rico and Alexandra Shapiro to his team. The third request for bond was filed September 30th. Alexandra has another very high-profile client, Sam Bankman-Fried, who was convicted of fraud last year in that whole Bitcoin mess, which don't understand Bitcoin, but I know he got popped pretty good. Now, Texas attorney Tony Busby announced at a presser last week an additional 120 accusers will be coming forward with allegations of violent assault, facilitated with a controlled substance, and spreading of video recordings and assaults that include minors. And some of these allegations go back more than 20 years. He also claims that the 120 are only a small portion of as much as 3,000 people who have come to him with allegations. He said the accusers come from 25 or more states, and 25 of those accusers say they were minors at the time of the alleged crimes, the youngest being 9 years old. In that case, the alleged abuse took place at Bad Boy Records studio in New York City. The attorney said the victim was allegedly lured there with the promise of a record deal. Another alleged victim was 15 at the time she says Diddy abused her. She says she was flown to New York City for a party where she was drugged and taken into a private room with Diddy, and later others came in and abused her as well. Busby also said they've received, get this, 12,000 calls in just 24 hours through a hotline they have set up for victims to call in. They have a staff of 100 people just going through the calls that are coming in. He told Law and Crime that they are in the process of identifying who are victims, who are witnesses, and they're also collecting evidence. You think about this. If a lot of these calls are bogus or have no merit, statistically, the number that do is staggering. We haven't begun to scratch the surface of the enormity of these crimes that have gone on for decades. This is going to be the never-ending story with Diddy. And I don't think anybody that relies on Diddy for money is going to have a pot to PP in once this is all done. Now, Mr. Busby also said other defendants will be named, and some of those names will shock you. He's also said that people who have enabled Diddy over the years will be held accountable. He plans to start filing new civil suits in different states within the next month. Most of those cases will be filed in New York, but many could be filed in California as well. Mr. Busby told Dr. Phil's Mornings on Merritt Street, quote, "I expect that there's a lot of nervous people right now who are searching their memories, scrubbing their social media, deleting their data on their phones in the hopes that they are not anyhow in any way associated with this," end quote. And as to be expected, Diddy's lawyers deny all of it. One of his attorneys, Erica Wolf, told Fox News Digital, as Mr. Combs' legal team has emphasized, he cannot address every meritless allegation in what has become a reckless media circus. That said, Mr. Combs emphatically and categorically denies as false and defamatory any claim that he sexually abused anyone, including minors. He looks forward to proving his innocence and vindicating himself in court, where the truth will be established based on evidence, not speculation. Since his arrest, more accusers are coming forward to the feds as well, according to TMZ. The media outlet reported on October 2nd that people are coming forward and sharing information, mainly since Diddy is behind bars and they feel less intimidated. Diddy's attorney, Mark Agnafilo, was on TMZ's special, The Downfall of Diddy. You can watch that, by the way. It's free on Tubi. He said Diddy would not take a plea deal if offered one. His attorney also said Diddy is fighting this to inspire others who feel they are facing government prosecution to fight back. Now, moving on, Diddy's mom has spoken out about her son's arrest. Janice Small Combs released a statement, so let's read that in full. It says, "I come to you today as a mother that is devastated and profoundly saddened by the allegations made against my son, Sean Combs. It is heartbreaking to see my son judged not for the truth, but for a narrative created out of lies. To bear witness what seems to be like a public lynching of my son before he has had the opportunity to prove his innocence is a pain too unbearable to put into words. Like every human being, my son deserves to have his day in court, to finally share his side and to prove his innocence. I'm not here to portray my son as perfect because he is not. He has made mistakes in his past, as we all have. My son may not have been entirely truthful about certain things, such as denying he has ever gotten violent with an ex-girlfriend when the hotel surveillance showed otherwise. Sometimes the truth and a lie become so closely intertwined that it becomes terrifying to admit one part of the story, especially when that truth is outside the norm or is too complicated to be believed. This is why I believe my son's civil legal team opted to settle the ex-girlfriend's lawsuit instead of contesting it until the end, resulting in a ricochet effect as the federal government used this decision against my son by interpreting it as an admission of guilt. It is important to recognize that none of us, regarding our status, are immune to fear or mistakes. Not being entirely straightforward about one issue does not mean my son is guilty of the repulsive allegations and the grave charges leveled against him. Many individuals who were wrongfully convicted and later exonerated had their freedom taken from them not because they were guilty of the crimes they were accused of, but because they didn't fit the image of what this society considers to be a good person. History has showed us how individuals can be wrongfully convicted due to their past actions or mistakes. Watching the world make jokes and laugh at my son's life crumbling before our eyes is something I can never forget. It is truly agonizing to watch the world turn against my son so quickly and easily over lies and misconceptions without ever hearing his side or affording him the opportunity to present his side. These lies thrown at him are motivated by those seeking a financial gain and not justice. These individuals saw how quickly my son's civil legal team settled his ex-girlfriend's lawsuit, so they believe they can receive a quick payday by falsely accusing my son. False allegations of sexual assault thwart true victims of sexual violence from getting justice they deserve. To make matters worse, the federal government is now using these lies to prosecute my son. This injustice has been unbearable for our family. The worst part of this ordeal is watching my beloved son be stripped of his dignity, not for what he did, but for what people choose to believe about him. I ask his supporters, fans, colleagues, friends, and the public to not judge him before you've had the chance to hear his side. I beg you to think about those who have been wrongfully persecuted, to remember not everyone who has made mistakes in life deserves to have their entire existence judged by a single action or a few mistakes. My son is not the monster they painted him to be, and he deserves the chance to tell his side. I can only pray that I'm alive to see him speak his truth and be vindicated. So that was mom's statement. And I get it. I'm a mother. You wouldn't want to believe these things about your child, but it's not looking good for Diddy. I think by the end of this, there's not going to be a question because there is so much digital evidence that's going to come forward. We have heard they have found thousands of tapes. And for the alleged victims, it's the worst because not only are you dealing with something that's traumatic, you are taking on one of the most powerful entertainers in the world. And even though he's behind bars, there has to be fear attached with that still. So kudos to these victims for being brave, coming forward and telling their story so that if this is proven to be fact, he never can do this again. We've gotten a little insight from a man named Timothy Smith who was on a show called Married at First Sight. He served time in a federal prison for drug trafficking and talked about what Diddy can expect while he's in jail. He told the Daily Mail Australia that Diddy's wealth will not get him any special treatment. He said, as far as the commissary goes, you're allowed a tracksuit and some sneakers, and that's about it. I'm sure Diddy probably has access to some of the food, but maybe not. I don't know. If anybody knows for sure that has been in a federal jail or prison, let me know. Shoot me an email, gg@prettyliesandalibis.net, or leave a comment here. My internet's still very spotty. I have so many messages I haven't responded to, but very curious to see if you're in federal lockup and you're in solitary, can you get commissary items? He says with Diddy being in solitary, he wouldn't even have access to a radio or a TV. You get a Bible and you get one book a week if you're lucky. He also said Diddy would be limited in how much he can talk on the phone, and that's typically around 300 minutes every month. So, for example, if you make a 30-minute phone call every day, after 10 days, you're maxed out and you get no more minutes until the next month rolls over. Just a little rumor control because a lot of people have been throwing some names out there saying, oh, they're being investigated. TMZ reported that Ashton Kutcher is not being investigated by the feds. That's what their sources told them. I think it's important just to throw back out there. Just because somebody was friends with Diddy at one point or went to a white party, it doesn't mean they were involved and they're automatically guilty. A lot of times with these true crime cases, if you're new to true crime and you're just really getting into it because of Diddy, rumor and speculation really run rampant in every single case. And 9 times out of 10, rumor and speculation ends up not being true. And these are people with real lives and families. And just because they hung out with Diddy, it doesn't make them a predator. Just felt the need to put that out there. Moving on to Tupac. You guys know I love Tupac, and I've followed the East Coast, West Coast thing since the 90s. I followed the murder of Tupac very closely. I have a whole episode on Keefe D, a couple actually, if you want to go back and listen to those and hear the allegations against him. Tupac's family has hired a legal team, including New York-based attorney Alex Spiro, to see if there's any connection between Tupac's murder and Diddy. If the name Alex Spiro rings a bell, that's because we just covered the Alec Baldwin case not too long ago. Alex Spiro was successful in getting those charges against Alec Baldwin in the Rust movie shooting trial thrown out because of a Brady violation where evidence was suppressed. Now, Tupac's family wants to find out if there's a connection between Tupac's murder and Diddy. Just a reminder, Tupac was shot in a drive-by in Las Vegas on September 7th, 1996. The car was being driven by Death Row Records founder Suge Knight. Now, Suge, he was grazed by a bullet, but nothing serious. Tupac died from his injuries on September 13th. He was only 25 years old at the time of his death. Can you imagine what Tupac could have done up to now if he hadn't been killed? Crazy. Such a loss. Now, Keefe D was arrested last September and charged in Tupac's murder. Now, we know he wasn't the gunman, but in Nevada, you can be charged with murder if you assist in the crime. His trial is set for March of 2025. His nephew, Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, is widely believed to be the one who fired the shots that killed Tupac. Baby Lane was killed 2 years after Tupac's murder. It was unrelated. Keefe D claimed to be in the front seat of the car when the shooting of Tupac occurred. Now, in the past, Keefe D has claimed that Diddy offered him $1 million to arrange that hit on Tupac. He also said in his memoir, Compton Street Legend, that he was the one who provided the gun that was used in the shooting. I mean, this guy's own words literally got him arrested. He got too comfy after all these years and have what I call, pardon my French, but verbal diarrhea, where he just kept talking and it wouldn't stop. And it ended him in jail and charged in Tupac's murder. He's actually the last person alive who was part of the group involved in that murder, at least there in Vegas. In a 2009 police interview conducted by undercover police, Keefe D was asked, "Does Diddy play a role in this thing?" Regarding Tupac's murder, Keefe D says, "Yes. Yeah, I think he did." Now, Keefe D says that Diddy made a call for Suge Knight's head in front of 40 people. Keefe D said that Diddy was kind of scared of Suge Knight. We were at a hotel and he was like, "Man, I would give anything for that dude's head." Now, just a reminder, Suge Knight is currently serving 28 years in prison for the murder of a California businessman. So that's the latest on Diddy. Constantly evolving story. A lot of people speaking out. I'm all over it. I've really thought about doing a big backstory on the East Coast, West Coast thing because I could spurt it off the top of my head. I've watched every documentary. I've watched every special. I've read so many books, and it's unfortunate, really. You think about if East Coast, West Coast had to just joined forces and worked together, man, they would have been unstoppable. But unfortunately, things happened and some really talented artists killed, gone too soon. I don't know. We'll see if I have time to do it. With Sarah Boone's trial being delayed, I might have time. You know, you have to wonder with all the electronics that they seized from Diddy's house during these search warrants, is there a little hint of anything that would implicate him in Tupac's murder? Can you imagine if somewhere in all of these electronics that they have seized, the things they've taken from safes and in the houses that the search warrants were executed, or if a witness comes forward and Diddy was actually implicated in Tupac's murder? Can you imagine what would happen? It would be wild. But if it's proven that there's something there, it's a long time coming because Tupac's family still needs closure and people need to be held accountable. And the ones that were in that car, other than Keefe D, no longer here due to violence. So that's it for today. Now that Sarah Boone's not live this week, I will figure out what episodes we're going to do. I'm not sure what I'm going to be covering, but we will do something every day, hopefully. The internet connection is still very spotty. So if I skip a day, I just gave up after so many hours of trying to get this thing to upload. I have to stop and start this recording a lot. Be patient. I appreciate it. We're still getting back to normal. Hey, but I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your evening, and we will see you soon.